So if you're trying to develop the major requirements for a software application and you're using artificial intelligence, your sessions are probably going to be rather long and not a short session. So I would find myself doing this like at 2 a.m. in the morning because it would go on for 3 hours, usually about a 3 to 3.5 hour session. My name is Matt Evans. I'm a retired financial professional and project manager. And some of these slides, some of the text overlaps because when AI tried to create the slides as image files, it overlapped a little bit. So below my name, Matt Evans, is my email address, which is matt@startupfinancialplan.ai. And this is another presentation, a video lesson on developing requirements using artificial intelligence for software development. So in my case, I'm a financial professional and I meet with and train financial plans for lots of small business owners in the United States. And there are a lot of pain points for small business owners because they don't really have a strong financial background. All of a sudden, they're given a spreadsheet template. They got to try and fill it out. They're not used to it. They don't know what questions they need to be asked and answered to do it. So, one of the things that I'm thinking about as the project manager trying to come up with a solution is how do I reduce so much of these pain points because people hate filling out forms. They don't know what's being asked. I don't know what the tables mean. So like if you're trying to figure out, okay, an asset, what is the asset? Describe the asset. There's certain information I have to calculate. But suppose I gave you some information on what the useful life of the asset is. And I did some of the calculations for you. And I had just a simple conversation with you, the end user, the small business owner, and maybe if I had something like an AI data entry helper that would capture the essence and ask the questions, so it will walk you through step by step by step. So I was thinking that would be a great additional requirement to build into this application after the initial minimum viable product release. And that's what I'm trying to do here with this major requirement and have a conversation with Claude Code late at night. So what I'm trying to replicate with artificial intelligence is literally if the business owner sat down with the CPA like me, I would have a conversation with the business owner to capture certain things, information, and it would be a question and answer session. Well, I'm about to start a delivery business. Well, then do you plan on leasing or buying a truck? Well, I'd like to actually buy a pickup truck. Do you know how much the pickup truck will cost? Well, I have a couple of trucks in mind, and it'll cost about $45,000. So right away, I know by the tables per the IRS, the useful life for depreciation for a truck or vehicle is about 5 years. And you would have a conversation. Do you want to go ahead and use the 5 years, or do you think the truck will last more than 5 years? How would you like to write it off over its useful life? Then you nail that variable input down. Once I know that, let's say it is 5 years, then that tells me what the depreciation is. We'll keep it simple under straight line method. So now I know how to write it off in the financial statements. That goes into a table. AI captures that data, and we'll have to put a down payment, and the term loan will mirror the useful life. And then there's a table that helps direct you, the end user, as to what a down payment should be for this type of asset. So you're having this conversation with the business owner, and you walk them through step by step by step. So it becomes a very easy exercise with some business rules, and a conversation takes place between the AI data helper and the business owner to get through this process to build out the financial plan correctly. And that's what we're trying to do with this requirement. So why 2 a.m. in the morning? Well, these sessions typically are about a 3-hour session to build out the requirement specifications. And I usually would have at least a one-page document with some examples of what I'm trying to build out. In this case, I focused on input app number 1 and how would I actually build this out, the AI data entry helper. And you have this conversation with Claude Code. I mean, you could use Codex. It's not the only coding AI platform you can use, but in my case, I am using Claude Code at 2 a.m. in the morning to do a major build out for a data entry helper for input app 1 on startup cost estimate. And that lasts about 3 hours, results in 11 different artifacts and documents that's created from the session. And that's 35,000 plus words across 11 artifacts. And you're focused on this one thing, going back and forth, trying to capture everything and answer questions with Claude Code at 2 a.m. in the morning. So there's no interruptions, no distractions, very high focus sessions to build out major requirements for your software application. So there's like a back and forth conversation. And when you work with AI agents, it's just literally like having a conversation with a person. It's almost like there's someone in the room with you, the actual developer or the requirements analyst, and you're having a conversation and you basically are going to answer a series of questions, and it helps to give examples or case study examples to walk through so that the AI platform, Claude Code in this case, knows exactly how to build out the logical flow, the decision flow, the decision logic, if you will, and how those prompts, UI, user interface, will work between AI, data entry helper, and the end user based on that conversation, like the delivery business and the truck and the $45,000 and the down payment. And I understand the math. It is trying to figure out the specifications to build out the logic of it and how those prompts will work if we actually do, in fact, build out the data entry helper on the software application. This is the conversation that we're having back and forth. So in this extended late night session, where I'm trying to build out the requirements for the AI data entry helper, this session ended up producing 11 different artifacts or documents to capture the requirements. So this is why it's a 2, 3, 4 hour session late at night, and you're having this conversation back and forth. It's like the very first artifact was the build sequence, how you're going to build this out, and evaluating the platform for how it can handle it, the back end. Then artifacts 2, 3, 4, and 5 were for the 4 input apps, specification documents on the decision logic, how it's going to work. For the 4 input apps, that's steps 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it added a step 5, that's going to be artifact 6, which is the output synthesis, the decision logic, the specification. And the artifacts 7 and 8 are the UI, user interface. How will the user interface with the data entry helper through a series of prompts? And it had to design the prompts for input apps 1, 2, 4, steps 1, 2, 4, differently than the revenue model, which is step 3, input. That's the input apps. So it had to design that a little bit differently between 3 of the input apps and step 3, the 4th, the revenue input app. And then it had a guidance document. That's number 9 on the various assumptions and defaults. And then it produced 4 different case study examples so you could test out the logic and the build. And it created that. I didn't even tell it. Specifically, I didn't even tell it what to do, but it knew how to do that. And it's asking you the question, would you like me to build out some case study examples? Yes, go ahead and do that. So you're going back and forth having these conversations as you build out the artifact. And finally, can you build out some type of change order specification draft? Because all the requirements have to be translated into one or more change orders, and the change orders is where the execution and build actually take place on the hosting platform. So this is what's happening when you build out major requirements to get to the change order for software development. So as far as the actual calculations and the actual processing of data, you will probably find yourself as the SME, subject matter expert, actually developing the business rules and calculations. For example, when I built out the loan amortization tables, I spoon-fed AI the exact formula ahead of time and built that into my request when I did the build. Or you give it specific directions on how to depreciate something, such as straight line, or some rules to follow on the cash runway projection. What is it? How would I calculate it and assess it? So these are the things that you as the project manager, you have to have some people with subject matter expertise to build this out, because AI is not going to necessarily know how to build that out. But when you put that in the form of an actual specific specification, it will build it out and put it into the software program, and you can have a conversation with it. And you can ask it, what is a good rule to follow for, let's say, how many days should inventory be held? And I have that conversation with the AI platform to figure out a table to set that business rule up. So this is what you're doing when you're building out software. You're having conversations to build out the calculations and the processing, and you embed that as business rules within the software application. The other thing that's nice is you can work hand in hand with artificial intelligence to build out the actual assumptions and rules that are going to work in your model, your software. And again, we're working from the bottom up. Inputs, start with the inputs that are coming in, and then the layers above that are things like the reasoning, the logic, the business rules. For example, AI might have said, we might have started off with, let's say 45 days is the average number of days we want to hold inventory to calculate how much inventory is going to be held within a business that has products. But then you have some more reasoning with AI, and it comes up with and say, well, that's probably a one size fits all, and that doesn't work so well. Can we improve the accuracy of it? AI comes back and says, well, here's a table. Give me a range of different days inventory from perishable foods to car dealerships. And it comes up with 15 different ranges, and it recommends that it defaults to a midpoint within the range. So it'll help you build the logic out within the models so that you can process and get the data correctly in the software application. So that's one of the great things about it. And it also sometimes will impose some of its own logic, like 3 scenarios, for example, is what the super agent defaulted to 3 scenarios, which we're not sure if I'm going to do that or not, or maybe I just keep it simple to just the base case only. But these are conversations that you can work out with your AI agent when you're developing software applications. Another thing I like about artificial intelligence, it can build in messages that flag certain things so that you can be much more proactive in making sure you manage your financial plan and your financials correctly. For example, like I'll give you a couple of examples where I said, it would be nice if AI could flag any month in the sales revenue forecast where you had to have a certain level of inventory on hand before the very first month of sales that kicks in year 1. And what AI did, it flagged it in yellow on every product that was entered into the application, so the end user, the business owner, knew they had to have some level of inventory on these months in their product mix for their sales revenue forecast. Likewise, in the cash flow statement, also it will flag negative cash balances. Flag it. Your working capital runs out after month 11. So you've got 3 months of negative cash flow. You got to go back, and it recommends and points it back to the funding plan to exercise a line of credit. So we exercise more of a line of credit to get rid of these gaps. And the AI is helping you work through that process. Rather than just, if you sat down with the CPA, they're going to charge you to go through all this and fix it for you. This time AI is doing it for you without sitting down and getting charged by the CPA. That's the beauty of AI. I'm trying to codify as much of my financial knowledge as I can into the application, so you don't have to have a CPA or an accountant. The AI is going to help you figure it all out with all the business rules and things built into the model. And that's the beauty. That's part of the reason why I like artificial intelligence. And just to back up and let's look at the high level macro view of the project. In the previous couple of slides, I was getting into some very specific weeds. But at the highest level, we also are focused, like I said, going back to our original case study earlier in this presentation, is we want to get the design right, the design architecture. And then and only then do we really want to build. And we don't want to build everything. We don't want to build everything in the house. We just want to build the basics that solves the fundamental problem in a really good way, which is what we call the minimum viable product, or MVP. And this is the life cycle that we want to go through. And then we would probably have some form of beta testing or end user testing to validate this. And I probably will do it before I release an MVP. I'll try to get some beta testers into the sandbox well before the MVP, because I don't know if I have it right or not. We have to have some form of what I call IV&V, independent validation and verification. IV&V, independent validation and verification, is a major toll gate control in the life cycle of a project. Then once I think I really have something and I get some market traction with the initial release, the MVP, because if you get no market traction and the marketplace really doesn't care and has a ho-hum reaction, then I don't want to continue to spend a lot of time expanding and building out more change orders. It becomes an exercise in futility, because we got to be realistic about it. Most software projects never really become successful, and they never truly get monetized. So you got to be grounded in the reality of execution as a software project manager. And again, just stressing the point, my background, I am a project manager and I've been on software projects, but I'm not a programmer or a software engineer. And the real thing that I would tell people is, if you want to build something and you want to build some software, you do not need to be a programmer. You just don't. And the real thing is you have to combine your domain expertise. In my case, it's a financial CPA knowledge. And if I combine that with artificial intelligence, when you combine those two things together, you're going to drive really great requirements. And in our original case study, as we saw, that took a 3-hour session. 35,000 words were created in 3 hours, 11 artifacts. I mean, if I went back a few years ago and I had a development team work on this, that probably would go on for weeks and weeks. It would cost thousands and thousands of dollars to produce that one major requirement and change order. It was done in 3 hours at virtually no cost. So, I mean, if you're developing software, I mean, that just tells you how dramatic this is. And again, if you can really truly combine your expertise with AI, you can produce a very highly scalable product that hopefully will solve problems for somebody out there in the world. And that's what you really want to think about when you use AI for software development. So this has been a good lesson on basically how you have to manage some serious requirements. And we went into some minor requirements as well. That's translated into change orders. And I have other presentations as well as monthly articles that I'm publishing to show people how all this stuff works. How does software development work with AI, artificial intelligence? If you want a real inside view, a call to action might be to sign up as a beta tester, and you'll be in the sandbox, and you'll actually, hopefully you'll create some of the requirements. I'll translate that into change orders, and you'll see how this process works from the inside. So there is a page called the Beta Test Hub page on the website, and the link is in the middle of this slide. Again, my name is Matt Evans. I'm a retired financial professional and a project manager, and hopefully you found this useful. My email address, by the way, is matt, M-A-T-T, @ startupfinancialplan, all one word, .ai. Thank you for listening.